Meet Felicia Carroll, the mother of the late Kendall Green of Glen, Burnie, Maryland. Kendall was a 25-year-old man murdered last year, September 15th, 2013.
Hello, I'm Felicia Carroll. I'm the mother of the late Kendall Green. Kendall was murdered a year ago today, September the 15th, at 1:55 in the morning by Matthew Pinkerton. Kendall came to the home, knocked on the door, and upon Kendall knocking on the door, Mr. Pinkerton went to retrieve the weapon. He came to the door. What I know now is that they did have a discussion. Mr. Pinkerton made fun of the way Kendall pronounced certain words. Kendall asked whether Jessica, his wife, resided there, and he said Jessica resides here, not resigns here. I got that information from the police report that I have. I do know also that he did say, N-word, get off of my porch. If you want to talk to her, call her. Kendall said, she asked me to come over here. From that point, the story varies depending on the witness. Matthew Pinkerton says that he did not call him N-word, but we do know that it is on record that he called him that at least 3 times. Media has reported that Kendall has knocked on the door, banged and kicked, and it was a home invasion. The police report further, and the forensic specialist has verified that there was no home invasion, that there was no banging and kicking on the door, and that is still in the paper at this point in time. That's what the media has spun, that Kendall was over there banging and kicking on a door, and therefore it was a matter of Mr. Pinkerton protecting his home. What I do know also is that Kendall turned to leave. Mr. Pinkerton closed the door, and as Kendall called him a name or something, nothing to do with race, but he did curse at him and say something, and Mr. Pinkerton had slammed the door shut. He did come back to the door, open it as Kendall was getting ready to leave, and said, "Excuse me, what did you say?" At that point, it was when Kendall turned back around, and he told his wife that she needs to learn how to control her N-word. That's when Kendall stepped towards the door. Mr. Pinkerton's own statement says, and on his 911 call says, he started to come into my house and I shot him twice. When we went to court, it stated, they stated that Kendall was 3 feet, 4 feet, or even 5 feet into the home. That was not said by Mr. Pinkerton on the night of the shooting. It was not said on the 911 call. A witness actually got on the stand and they said, well, where was Mr. Pinkerton? Because his wife initiated the 911 call. They said, where was Mr. Pinkerton? And the witness said that he was there telling his wife what to say. What his wife said on the 911 call was that she didn't know who it was at the door, that it was a man at their door who barged into their home and tried to get into their home, and that her husband shot him. We now know that there was conversations back and forth between my son and Mrs. Pinkerton, in which he was in a relationship with that night. We don't know what that conversation was. A witness stated that he was told not to come over there because she was not separated. That makes no sense because he already knew that. Why would that need to be reiterated on a phone conversation? So we don't know what happened to Kendall because his side has been buried with his death. What I do know is that we need to get to a place where person to be killed after calling a name due to their sexual orientation, and that is being called a hate crime. Why is it not considered a hate crime for this man to have called my son the N-word 3 times at least, and that not be considered a hate crime? We need to get to a place where society has to accept the fact that there are people that hate people based on their race, not just their sexual orientation. Yes, we have, in a sense, society has desensitized the word, but based on what we consider a hate crime, this fits the crime. And so we're asking that the Justice Department step in, because Matthew Pinkerton went to court. A judge did not allow the jury to know that he called my son the N-word. That was determined the week before the trial. I did not know that that happened until the end of May. I found out that my son was called these names. His own attorney stated that it is the worst word in the English language, and that his client would not receive a fair trial based on the jury hearing that word. Well, by the jury not being able to hear that word, Kendall was not given a fair trial. Would Kendall have turned around and asked him to say it to his face if he had not called him that? My son would be here today. So we do need to allow that people know the truth about what happened that night. We need it out there so that this does not happen to another person. The judge also would not allow the fact that Matthew Pinkerton shot at Kendall, be it with an air gun, a pellet gun, 13 months prior. That was not allowed into the record. What was allowed was that an incident happened 13 months prior, but they could not bring in the fact that it was a gun. So they're trying to say this was escalated. There was an escalation by Kendall over this period of time. But there was an escalation by Matthew Pinkerton over this period of time.
What are some of the things outside of what you've mentioned that bother you the most about your son's case, or what happened that night?
One of the biggest things that bothered me is that my son we did not get a fair trial. I cannot get the image that the attorney has placed out there about my son. I do know for a fact that if my son had murdered Matthew Pinkerton that night, my son would be in jail for life. But because Matthew Pinkerton, a military man, is being held, his character is being decided by his occupation and not by the character of this person or the morals of this person. We put a higher standard on what a person does and determine that to be who they are. That's not who he is. That's his job. He works for the United States government. But that does not give him the authority to kill my son. What I did find out was that both shots were kill shots. My son was not going to make it that night. If he felt threatened by my son, as they determined him to be 6'6", and they stated in the courtroom that he was 6'6" and a beast. He's huge, full of rage. My son was 6'6", but he only weighed 165 pounds. Matthew Pinkerton was 5'9", muscular, 200 pounds. They tried to determine or state that my son was larger than life, full of rage that night. I don't believe that to be true. They used that he had been drinking that night to determine that he was full of rage. Matthew Pinkerton also was drinking. They had just came from a bar where he had been there from 9 o'clock at night. His blood alcohol level was not taken because it was like 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning by the time he went to the police station. The only reason they have a record of Kendall's is because he's no longer here. Yes, he was above the legal limit. I'm not denying that. I know who my son was, and I accept who my son was. But I know that my son is not the beast that the media has portrayed him to be.
What would you like to see going forward?
Going forward, there needs to be laws changed. In this particular case, the judge was allowed to determine what evidence would be heard, be it the N-word. Also, he didn't allow the 13-month ago incident. He also got to determine that the jury wouldn't hear the rest of the case. If you request a jury trial, as Matthew Pinkerton did, then the case needs to go to a jury to be decided, not a judge determine that he can say what evidence is heard, what evidence will not be heard, and determine whether there is enough to proceed in the case. If you have a free determination in your mind and you're not open to what happened, then that gives you too much authority. If he wanted a judge to decide his case, he should have requested a judge. If there is a jury case and a jury is in panel, then the jury should be able to make the decision of whether or not the charges should stand.
How can anyone help further your cause or bring attention to what you're trying to do, to bring awareness to what happened to your son?
People need to just not be the judge of someone. What we have learned in multiple cases is that media can spin a case either way they like to. They have jumped on board with the fact that there was a home invasion and that he was kicking on a door. When no one has decided to step up, get the court report that says that Kendall was not kicking on a door. Kendall was not over there banging on a door, and that there was no home invasion. The female witness also stated that Kendall was on the porch lying on his back when they asked her to go, when someone went out there to check and see whether he was living. They said that he was 3 feet, 4 feet, or 5 feet in the house, and he fell out the house onto the porch. You can't just fall from 3 feet into somebody's house and just fall backwards out of the house and land on the porch. That's impossible. Paramedics stated that Kendall was found on his stomach on the porch. So how does he get from his back to his stomach? There are a lot of questions that are unanswered. There's more that needs to be done. They need to research. They need to look at the police report. And I hope and pray that the Justice Department gets that and looks at it and reviews that and considers it when they're making their decision. So what people need to do is first, they need to understand that their voice matters, and it can be determined by their vote. They don't realize that judges, as well as Congress and senators, are voted into their positions. They need to research the people that they are putting in charge of making decisions on our behalf. They need to be more informed. They need to pay attention to the NAACP. They need to join. They need to come out to meetings. They need to pay attention. They need to do research. We can't just sit here and take what people spoon feed us and think that they're giving us information that is beneficial to us. We need to stand up. We need to get leaders in place that we feel can help us.
Is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, not at this time. I just thank you for your time. We are going to have a court sit-in on September the 19th, where we're going to be at the courthouse, and we're just going to go into the courtroom and sit. Our silence will speak volumes, and we're expecting at least 50 people to show up that morning. We're just going to go in there and just sit quietly.
Thank you much for your time, Ms. Carroll.
Thank you.
Our prayers are with Ms. Carroll and the other mothers like her that far too often have to say goodbye to their children far too soon.